Hey everyone, and welcome to module number 2, giving feedback. Beyond just the feedback loop process, which is a more generic way of thinking about feedback, today I'll be teaching you the W.I.N.D model of feedback, which is very specific on how to get the biggest and best impact regarding the feedback you are trying to give. You will be looking to see what is actually going on here, neutrally without judgment, that will be very helpful for the other person to know. And how do you invite them into a joint problem solving process in order to be able to come out the other side happy? So why did I call it W.I.N.D? I get that a lot actually, because it's a rather different acronym. You wouldn't think that W.I.N.D has anything to do with feedback, but I want you to consider this. Think about how air, wind show up. It's intangible. You can't really see it, yet it has the power to carve through mountains and canyons, the Grand Canyon being a great example of that. It has the power to topple houses through hurricanes. It even has the power to give you a little bit of ease and grace after a long sweaty run when that little gentle breeze comes upon your cheek. So these are the different spectrums in which W.I.N.D pop up. And I want you to think about feedback like that. It can be forceful, toppling someone, or it can be gentle and easeful and graceful. So how forceful should you be? It's a great question. Because your W.I.N.D and the way you navigate W.I.N.D will really make the difference in how your feedback is received, as well as what type of dialogue space are you attempting to create. In general, the W.I.N.D model is very simple. In actuality, it requires a curious mind, an open heart, and the ability to ask really good questions to help the other side come in, feel safe, and want to open up further to either admit or deny what it is you are observing. So let's look at the W.I.N.D model a little closely and look at each step just a little bit for today. The first step is watch and observe. I love this step because it really does require you to be a little bit of an investigator. You need to see the patterns that are evolving and see whether or not they play true. Because if they don't, and you don't observe them neutrally, it can show where you are personalizing it and where you are putting too much at stake in the game and not really wanting to give feedback in a correct way to better the other side or to help them just improve. My favorite, and this is a story from a client of mine, was a woman who unfortunately would overextend herself. She would not really have the time to do the worksheets that I would be sending her, and at the end she became very apologetic. It was almost as a cycle. And so eventually, after the third or fourth time when this happened, I gave her a neutral feedback. I said, Sally, what I notice is that you're very eager to learn. You want to get this done, and yet, at the end of the day, I don't get the feedback I need from you by way of the worksheets. What's going on there? As you can tell, my delivery was one of curiosity, openness, and a good question at the end to figure out, did she see it the same way? The second step is one of impact. In the case of Sally, the impact was that she may not get the success she's looking for through our program if she doesn't do the actual work. So she would be losing money, she'd be kind of wasting her time. In the same way, when you're giving feedback, you really want to look at the impact that it is having either on yourself or the other side. And again, do so neutrally. Third is you want to name it. Name what is the actual thing that's occurring here. Remember the label component. Naming is really going to be probably one of the hardest things you do, but also if you do it correctly, it'll slide in, meaning the person will probably think that you are correct and want to engage you in understanding further. Lastly, you want to decide on next steps. And this is where you can ask either an open or closed question to get the other side to want to talk a little bit more. You can see whether or not there's something you can do. Is there a process that needs to be built? What is actually going on here and how can we correct it so future circumstances don't pop up that mimic the past? Because remember, everyone wants to do better at their job. And so we will be going through each of these steps a little closely in the following sections of this module. But remember for now, your wind is very important. And think about how you want to use it when you are giving feedback to